Welcome to Geeking Out with Shad. Just got a quick little range update. I've promised that I'm going to continue doing this as the seasons change. So, we're in mid-October, so we're well into fall. We've had some warmer than normal temps lately, but the mornings are cool, and now the highs, like today, it's 48 degrees, which is a bit more typical of October temperatures. So I do run the climate, but I'm doing this last full charge that I did. I've only been doing city driving. So driving around in the city, running climate at 72 degrees with auto on in the mornings and a couple of the afternoons where it was cooler. But yesterday we got up to 79 degrees. And so on my way back from work, I didn't have the climate change, but it was cold in the morning, so I did have the climate on. I said climate change, didn't I? Buzzword. So anyway, we'll look here, and we can see the guessometer says 181 miles remaining. So I've only used a quarter of the battery, roughly. Minimum 148, max 214. And then over here you can see that I've driven 62.3 miles. And so on this charge, you can see since the last full charge, I've learned to look at this and not that, because that's the last time I've cleared my mileage. So kind of like the trip odometer or trip thing on most cars. So here it's 33.9 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's a little lower with regen on driving in the city than it would be if I wasn't using climate. So the overall range of the car is more or less in line with the estimated range of 249 miles for this car. So that's pretty good. I do expect that as the temperatures get colder, this is going to drop even in city driving, so it'll be very interesting to see. One of the things you'll notice is you see that climate is 15% of this last charge, but there hasn't been any battery conditioning. I actually do not know at what temperature battery conditioning kicks in, but I could look that up. But it'll be interesting to see when that starts happening, to where the battery needs to warm itself up, and then that'll start using some of the capacity of the battery. So this is kind of a cool screen. You really get a good full understanding of what's going on looking at this screen. So I really do like it. So depending on where you live in the country, right, like this might be the coldest it gets in the area that you live. Like some parts of the country, getting down to the 40s, 50s is kind of like the coldest it ever gets in the wintertime. Then you're in pretty good shape. Up here in the central northern part of the country, we get pretty cold in the wintertime. So EVs are really challenged in this region of the country. What I do find interesting is whenever I look at charging maps, we also seem to be the most scarce area of chargers. And it's like, well, shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't we have more chargers because we need them more? Right? So it's going to be interesting how this car handles. We also have the Volkswagen up there to test out and see how that works. And, compared to ICE cars, internal combustion engine cars, they lose efficiency and range also in the cold. They have to sit and idle and warm up more. When they're cold, they're not as efficient. They don't get to efficiency until they're warmed up. It's just not as significant as EVs. So my Tacoma, driving around town in the winter on the coldest days, gets 14, 15 miles per gallon, when in the summertime it gets around 17 miles per gallon or so. And on the highway, I'm lucky if I can get it to get over 20 miles per gallon in the wintertime. But in the summer, I can get it up to 23, 24 on the highway, depending on the speeds I go, right? So there is a drop in efficiency on all vehicles. EVs just tend to be impacted more because batteries are less efficient and because you're actually using your battery to heat the car, unlike an ICE car where the engine is driving an alternator and the alternator is running the battery, and then the battery, the electricity from that is driven through the alternator in the electrical system of the car, and then the heat does come from the heat that's coming off of the engine. So once your engine warms up and your coolant warms up, then you can now have heat in your car. So it takes a little while with gas powered cars for the heat to kick on. Doesn't take as long with EVs, but it does take a little bit of time. And then they're just very different systems, and the fact that on a gas powered car the heat's coming from the heat that's driven from the engine and not having to be created. That's why heat pumps on EVs are kind of a good thing to have in colder climates, because they kind of they take the natural heat that you can get rather than having to create it with full electrical power, right? So there's just different systems out there. And so if you are buying an EV in a colder climate and you need more range, that's the big thing. Do you need more range than what this car is going to provide in the cold? Then you want to get a heat pump, you want to get a car with a bigger battery, you want to get a car, so on and so forth. But most people do not need this super high level of range. Like the amount of driving that I've done, like this last charge that I did, and I've only been driving in the city, was when I got back on Saturday, and it is now Wednesday, and I've only used a quarter of my battery. So I could go the whole rest of the week and probably into next week before I need to charge my car again, unless I do a long distance drive. Cool. I really appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.